It's my extreme pleasure, and welcome to our Meet Our Member series, to go ahead and introduce Steve Hooper, the President of Financial Services at Tiphaus. So, welcome.
Thanks, Rob. Pleasure to be with you, and excited to be one of the newer members of the IFBTA.
So, today, are you deployed all across the United States?
Yeah, pretty much every country, every state at this point. We've got at least.
Are you doing other countries?
We're working on working our way into the UK. They just changed their laws and a few other things, and so we're working our way into the UK and Europe slowly.
I would guess that any place that has laws changing and a complex market is the best market for you.
Absolutely.
Because you're specialized in that. Are you doing other industry verticals like hotels and other people that are tipping, perhaps delivery services? And I guess everybody takes tips these days. So
it's amazing. I mean, we get inbound calls from like tattoo parlors and just all kinds of different places. Tips are everywhere. To your point, right? Those little flip around screens are all over the place now. So yeah, we're doing a lot. We're moving more into hotels. We're adding a new part of the platform a little later this year, QR code tipping. So we obviously do all the restaurant and food and beverage side of hotels and any sort of banquets and all that kind of stuff we handle. That's core to the platform. But this would add in housekeepers, valets, and that kind of stuff. So now we can handle tipping on an entire property. Hotels, casinos, cruise ships, those kinds of categories we're spending time in.
right. Well, that's interesting. There's this debate out there that I've had with a lot of people about the future of QR codes, whether they're out there or not. But what about embedded in apps themselves, where you are, in fact, within the app? Because I think about tipping that's available to me in an app. I don't always need to scan something.
Yep. Yeah, no. So we've got one. There's a new category we're moving into, which should get announced a little later this year. But we're working with this.
You don't want to do that here?
I would love to, but PR blockade prevents.
Watch this space. I get that.
Exactly. So, but this group is a large publicly traded company, and we're going to be embedded into their system for tipping for their employees. And so, to your exact point, we're powering the back end of that in a new category where people aren't thinking about tipping today, but they will be forced to soon.
So you're actually bringing to mind two different things here. So the first one is that I get that, first of all, because most of the applications that were built today where they're putting tipping in, my guess is a lot of them are homegrown, that they had to build the application to accept that and then get that integrated. So you actually would solve that problem because you'd be embedded within the application, to handle that function.
Yep.
But also perhaps to handle the function, which really irks me sometimes, is the inability to just set up automatic tipping based upon a order.
That's a really interesting idea. Yeah, no, that's something we've definitely talked about, but I don't know that we've implemented that yet anywhere.
Well, a lot of people. Okay, so you heard it here first. We're coming up with ideas because we're here to brainstorm this, but you guys are the leaders in this particular area. So, that's an opportunity area for you, because some people do it even when you use the driver services. Some one driver service does it, the other one doesn't.
Yep.
And even one of my favorite coffee places, probably not too far from you guys, doesn't allow me to do automatic tipping.
Yep.
Which I think would be a great thing. And also, if you're eating or dining out, to be able to set that. But you got to have the app that flows that through, because as you pointed out, it's not just the taking of it, but the employees. They're actually part of this. They want to know. They need that information. So it's not the reporting. Would you say that given your background and your focus, that would make you different as a technology partner? Would you call yourselves employee first? I mean, who comes first in this, in the development and how it works?
Yeah. So what I like to say is that we're a technology solution that was built by restaurateurs to solve restaurant problems. And that's on both the payroll side or the GM side or the employee side. So we try and address the things from their perspective first. What's hard about their job? What makes it tough? How do we simplify their life? And so that's why the team decided to go with direct API integrations, for example. And we pull data every 15 minutes out of the point of sale. So if you change a time clock punch, let's say somebody forgot to clock out yesterday.
Right.
Well, they have too many hours. And if you tip pool based on hours worked, the tip pool's wrong. If you use a data lake instead, as some of our competitors do, that data is not in real time. It's just whenever that data lake got created. And you either have to update the data lake or whatever. And so that direct API integration makes the life of the payroll person that much easier. So they know as soon as that time clock entry hits, within 15 minutes, they're going to have all the tip pooling correct. So,
And it allows you to pay out if you want to pay out on the shift, which is something that, you take a look at employee pay and pay cards, which I assume that there would be the integration on that as well.
yep,
That gives you a leg up because of how you're recording it and you're calculating it to actually pay the employee faster.
exactly. So you've got confidence that as long as the punches are right, the rest of it's going to be correct. And so that part of our system was to like help the payroll folks. And then the GMs are always having to answer the question, well, what were my tips last week? Or like, I'm about to get an
Right.
apartment, or like, well, the employee app gives the employee the transparency, and the GM no longer has to like put information into spreadsheets or, answer questions about what the tips were last week. So just trying to simplify the internal operational life of the restaurant and the restaurateur.
You're collecting a lot of data,
Yeah.
obviously on individuals, but not necessarily about the individual for the question that I'm going to ask, which would create other issues. So, um, but the amount of data that you're collecting on industry segments and tipping,
Mhm.
is there some insights in there that you can provide in trends or things that people might want to think about once they have that kind of data that they may not have had before?
Yeah, no. So our dashboard inside the platform has got a number of interesting data points that really are hard to tease out without a lot of pulling data together and running spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. So we do a little bit of gamification inside of it. You can see tip percentages by employee pretty easily and cleanly, and you can see, especially if you're tip pooling. Let's say your average across your restaurant's 19%. And Joey's, crushing it at 22, but, Tim is only at 14. Well, that's a coaching opportunity. How do you get Tim to, get his tip percentage up? Because he's obviously something's going on there, right? So I think there's data that we're helping surface.
There could also be something going on with the guys making the big tips too. He might have something going on to get their drinks faster or something. I assume the other employees don't get to see this,
No, no, no.
although sometimes people do post on the wall, the service piece. But I
Leaderboard.
could imagine how you could use that one.
Yep. And then there's another data point that teases out like tips per hour by job code, for example. So HR would use that data point in a job posting to say, our bartenders make $18 an hour in tips, in addition to whatever the wage is and that kind of thing. And they can use real time data to answer those questions. So there is a lot of actionable data inside of the platform once it's kind of going. Broadly, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, to your other question about kind of trends generally, tipping continues to go up just nationally, right? Like it's everywhere, and the percentages keep increasing over time. I'm sure you've seen flip around screens where, it used to be like 15, 18, 20 or 18, 20, 22.
Now it's 20, 25, and 30.
I know, exactly. So like everything's shifting higher and higher.
Even in self-service, flip around screens.
I've noticed the same thing. And that's, look, on the consumer side, that I see the frustration that people have around tipflation and all of that kind of stuff. But the reality is it's not going anywhere unless a government mandate changes something about that. So and I don't see the government doing anything like that anytime soon.
I'd really like to thank, and it's been a great conversation with Steve Hooper, the President of Financial Services for Tiphaus, and welcome as a industry supporter of the IFBTA.
Thanks, Rob.